What is going on in South Africa? Last month in May, the president of South Africa was in the White House and denied that there is a white genocide going on when President Trump confronted him. We will find out today.
This is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross, and there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers. And those cars aren't driving. They're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it.
Welcome to NORC Discussions. A very interesting topic is about what's going on in South Africa. We have a minority group that is being persecuted, or maybe we don't, where white farmers are having land confiscated and there's an accusation of there being a genocide. I have with me today two South Africans. I have here with me today is Aliska Kortz from South Africa. She lives here in the United States. And I also have Jaco Klinhans, who is in South Africa as we speak. And Jaco, thank you so much. I know it's past midnight right now for you, but I appreciate you joining us here on NORC Discussions. Jaco.
No, thank you.
Good to have you. Jaco is the head of, or actually you're the spokesman for Solidarity, which is an Afrikaner lobbying organization. Jaco, I'd like to ask you, what is going on over there? Is there a genocide going on there? Is land being taken away from white farmers? Maybe you can tell us what is happening.
Yes, I think it's important to understand the bigger context of what's happening in South Africa. I think in the first place, it's quite true that South Africa do have a general enormous problem with crime. And crime is out of control. Violent crime is out of control in South Africa. We have thousands of people who die every year. All South Africans are violent crime. But what is happening with the Afrikaner minority? And it's important to understand who we are as Afrikaners. We are a very visible minority in South Africa. We are mostly white South Africans. We speak our own language, Afrikaans. And many Afrikaners are also farmers who work in rural areas of South Africa and who produce food in South Africa. There's, to give you an idea, less than 30,000 commercial farmers left in South Africa in a country with 63 million people. Now, what we saw over the last 3 decades was more and more an attack on South African farmers. More than 3,000 farmers were killed in some of the most brutal farm attacks. And we've been asking for 30 years, that this must become a priority crime, that we need special units to investigate these extreme levels of violence against our farmers. When we talk about the position of Afrikaners in South Africa, it is important to know that there is quite a lot of discrimination against Afrikaners in general. Laws like affirmative action, black economic empowerment that tries to drive Afrikaners out of the economy. Recently there were an expropriation act signed where the government says that they want to expropriate farmland and farmers' land with even giving people only zero compensation. Now, zero compensation is like taking someone's land and not giving him anything in return as compensation. Then we experience quite in general that our culture and our language as a minority group are discriminated against, in terms of schools where there's less and less Afrikaans language schools. Many monuments are removed and museums are taking the finance taken away from it. So in that bigger context of cultural survival, of physical survival, of efforts to try and get farmers to leave their land. We do believe that Afrikaners are persecuted, you know. Now, you can talk about what the definition of a genocide is. I don't believe there's some kind of large-scale physical attacks on all Afrikaners at the moment, but we're very concerned about the future and what the future can have, and that can things can get so bad in future, you know, that it can get to the level of a genocide. But I think there's a general feeling of alienation and persecution by Afrikaners at the moment, and which concerns many of our people, and that is one of the reasons why so many Afrikaners have left South Africa. About 20% of all Afrikaners immigrated and left this beautiful country, and we are fighting to keep our people here and to ensure that there's a future for them here in South Africa.
Well, there are South Africans that are seeking asylum now in the United States. And as you said, many have come here. And we have Aliska Kurtz here, who came to the United States. And Aliska, when and why did you come to the United States?
I came to the States in September of 2011 as an exchange student to try to see if I can better my life over here. I was not supposed to stay here, but it so happened that I started studies, and I ended up just staying here and not go back home. But even if I had to go back home without a degree or a half a degree, it wouldn't have been worth anything. So I had to go back home with something more to be able to provide for other things.
Did you notice when you were in South Africa at that time that there was any threat to you and your family, or did you feel unsafe there when you came here?
Yes, absolutely. There was like 2 weeks before my flight to the US where they tried to hijack me in my car. And if I didn't drive an old Volkswagen Golf, they probably would have gotten in my Golf and I would have never been seen of. But that was just 2 weeks before I came here. So the crime definitely existed back then, even before back in 2011, and I think we just got worse and worse.
Was that general crime, or do you think you were being
I think that was like a general crime. It was just easy. You're at a traffic stop, and people walking up. So there was nothing really that I can say otherwise. It was an easy target. I was an easy target, but I was able to get away. So that was a good thing. But it also, 2 weeks before I came here, it made me also like, hey, at least I'm trying to do something better, safer to go to a different country.
Yeah, as I was saying, I was doing international sales and did a trade show in Johannesburg right after the fall of apartheid. And the biggest selling products were safety and personal security products. And that was a very hot item at the time. So I guess it's still, security is a big thing, Jaco. So Jaco, let me ask you, you said that you didn't think that it's really that bad right now, but why are South Africans asking for asylum and coming to the United States?
I do believe it's bad, My fear is just that it can become much, much worse quite soon, We have the third largest political party in South Africa singing a song on a weekly basis. The song was sung just 2 days ago at one of our universities, asking for the killing of farmers and Boers. Now, Boers refer generally to Afrikaners as a cultural community. So it's already being bad, Just to give you one example, yesterday I've heard of a farmer in the north of South Africa near the city of Polokwane, in a quite a rural area. He went to town, and when he yesterday afternoon got back on his farmhouse were burnt down and all his property on the farm destroyed. Now, the reason for that is to try and drive the farmer off his farm. We've heard the same in the Oval Office recently during our president's visit to President Donald Trump, when one of the South African golfers who play with President Trump, Retief Goosen, told the same story to President Trump, that his own family had problems with communities trying to drive them off their farms by burning their farms down. So there is a daily fight for existence by our people in South Africa. And then it's important to distinguish between the general problem of crime, which all South Africans experience, and which is a huge problem, a daily problem, and the very specific challenges that Afrikaners as a minority experience, where people are driven off their farms, where there's the threat of expropriation of farmland, where there is about 4 or 5 attacks on farmers every week, at least one farmer getting killed once a week. Last year, we had 54 farmers brutally murdered on their farms, where we have this constant threats against the Afrikaner people as a minority group in South Africa. And you can just listen to what politicians are saying in South Africa, the kind of hate crimes they make against Afrikaners as a minority. So I think we are very thankful to President Trump for the focus that he and the emphasis that he has put on this problem the last 4 or so months. You know, President Trump first signed an executive order acknowledging the problems in South Africa and the threats that Afrikaners face in this country. And we are very thankful to President Trump for his international focus on this issue, and the fact that he wants to offer refugee status to certain Afrikaners. And let's be honest, who are these Afrikaners who get refugee status from the Trump administration? It is people who lost their farms, who lost their lands, people who were very, very bad or had very bad experiences with the racial laws in South Africa. I mean, it's very difficult, to be honest, for a white South African today to find a job with the affirmative action and the black economic empowerment laws that have quotas in all workplaces. And to be honest with you, for many young people, it's nearly impossible to find a job in South Africa. So in that sense, we are very, very happy with the fact that President Trump put this emphasis on issues in South Africa. But we also want to say that Afrikaners and minorities must have a place in South Africa. We can't just all leave the country. We need to find solutions for the many serious problems that our country face.
Well, Jaco, it also seems that it's more than just crime. It seems that with the government passing a law that's confiscating land from white farmers, that sounds more like it's part of the government. It's more than just a random crime type thing. Aliska, are you hearing about things like that? I mean, it seems that the press, and this is something that's really concerning me, the press is not covering this. We have refugees coming from South Africa. The press is not interviewing them. They're trying to cover this whole thing up and make it sound like President Trump is just making these things up. Aliska, what are you hearing about this?
Oh, I've known it always been going on. It's just they always try to silence it. That's the problem. We don't hear about it when in America. You don't see it on television. You don't see it on news. Every time you get it out there, they try to silence it. That's why we don't call it a genocide, because they don't see it as a problem. But if you are being hunted as a minority because due to other things, then that is why it's called a genocide. It is, you are still leaving the country for your life. You are fearing for your life. You have to escape, otherwise you can't escape it. But it's just because it's literally, as a minority, you are being hunted. I always knew it existed. I've always seen it. My family always talks about it, but it's just like everywhere else, it doesn't exist. And that is where we should speak up. That's why everybody's happy that Trump is taking this on and be like, thankfully, somebody's taking and having a voice and speaking for it.
Well, Aliska, you and I have actually talked about this for
Plenty
many
of
years, haven't we? And
Yes.
I've actually asked you to come and speak at a NORC meeting about it years ago. And I appreciate that you've finally come and helped us try to get this word out. And I think that that's the best we can do, is try to get the word out. Jaco, what can we do to help you? I think that since this seems to be getting covered up, is getting the word out going to help? What can we in the United States do to help you guys in South Africa?
Yes, I think that's the first thing that needs to happen. You know, she's absolutely correct. You know, the fact that the media, the mainstream media, is just trying to silence this, you know, is probably for me one of the saddest things about this whole issue. Since President Trump came back to the White House in January this year, He put so much emphasis on what's happening in South Africa and the persecution of Afrikaners as a minority. But what the mainstream media in America did was to try and to completely discredit what President Trump said. So if you look at the mainstream media reports, their recent visits to South Africa, it was all focused on discrediting President Trump's executive order on Afrikaners and the steps that he took, and even the way that he handled the visit from the South African president. The fact is, look at what's happening in South Africa. We have a persecuted minority who live in fear for their lives every day. People who are afraid that they may lose their land. People who are very much connected to the land, as many Afrikaners are farmers. And that's a fact. That's a reality that I can show to anyone who visits America. So I think the first thing we need to do is we must make use of the opportunity that that new alternative media give us. The fact that we can get this message out in different ways through social media, talking to many communities in America. When I visit America once a year and I speak to people also in Michigan, it's interesting, that people don't know what's happening in South Africa. So I think the first thing to do is we must be much, much more involved in getting this message out. And putting pressure on politicians to take steps. There's currently more than one act in the American Congress on the situation in South Africa. There's some very good congressmen in America wants to focus on these issues, but we need to put pressure on more politicians from all the congressional delegations to support this legislation so that in the run-up to the G20 summit, which will be in November in South Africa, we have a very, very strong international focus on the persecution of Afrikaners in South Africa.
Well, Jaco, I really appreciate your doing this with us. Does your organization have a website or something that would help spread this word? What can we do to help get the information out about what's happening to the white South Africans?
Yes, absolutely. I would love it if people can visit our website. People can also follow me on social media, on X and on Facebook, other social media. We are also on social media as Solidarity Trade Union and Solidarity Movement. We are a conservative Afrikaner lobby group, and people can visit our website, solidarity.co.za, as well as our other organization, afriforum.co.za, or they can simply search on Google about our organization. But I will also put out daily information on this on my own social media channels, where I tell people just about life in South Africa and what is happening here every day. So yes, I think the best thing is for people to get information, get the right information, not what the mainstream media are trying to tell them, to be well informed, and then to make sure that we do have political pressure on the South African government.
Very good, Jaco. Thank you. And Aliska, what else? What more can we do? How do we get this word out? What are you hearing from your family and friends in South Africa? It's very frustrating that this is being covered up by our news.
Unfortunately, that is all I'm hearing from my people back home. It's just the fact that it's frustrating because our voice is being silent. Who do they speak to? They're the minority. Who do they talk to? They don't have anybody to really listen and to do something about it. This is why I'm very thankful over here that we are trying to do something now. But back home, there's not a lot of people who listen. And if you're the minority and they're the majority, how do you get other people to listen to you? What do you do about it? It's hard.
Well, both of you, thank you so much. This is why we're doing this today on North Discussions. And I think the people watching this on YouTube share the link. It's very bizarre that usually the United States stands up for an oppressed minority group that's being oppressed and land taken away and they're being killed by their government. Usually we stand up for this. It's very unusual that this is being covered up by the press. It's that the people in the government are ignoring it. You hear nothing about it. Why isn't the press going and interviewing these people coming here seeking asylum? So share this link. Let's get the word out. And I want to thank our guests today, Jaco Klinghans and Aliska Kortz. both from South Africa, and let's get this word out and try to help our brethren out there in South Africa.